Yo, what's up guys, Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to hit rank 1 with on the arena ladder. As you can see from the screenshot here, I'm currently 28 and 4 with this deck, so it's been performing really well for me. And now before I get into it, there's going to be an MTG zone link down in the description. If you click on that, you'll have the full deck list there that you can import into arena if you want to try the deck out for yourself. And I'm also in the process of writing a full text article about this deck for MTG Zone Premium that will have more details, a full sideboard guide, how I change the deck for best of one, and some tips and tricks to help you play the deck as well. So as soon as that's finished and up, I'll link that down in the description. But anyway, with that all out of the way, this is my blue-white Metatect artifact aggro deck in Historic. And this is an aggro deck that is capable of some insanely fast kills, but can also grind really well into the mid to late game. And as the name suggests, we're also built to enable this new innovative Metatect card, which I'm a really big fan of. Anyway, we're going to start off by having a look at the aggro tools, the tools in the deck that enable you to kill the quickest, and then we'll have a look at the Metatect and the other cards afterwards. So, starting off here with Retrofit Foundry. So this is kind of the core of a lot of the artifact decks in the format right now, and it's no different here. So this is a really great mana sink, a really great way to grind into the mid to late game because you can consistently pump out tokens. Great in multiples because you can move up the chain faster. But in terms of the aggro game plan and trying to kill as fast as possible, the thing you want to be doing with Retrofit Foundry is trying to assemble it alongside another Thopter within the first 2 turns of the game. So we've got Retrofit Foundry alongside 4 Ornithopter. So if we have these two together, we can go Foundry and Ornithopter on turn 1, then immediately sacrifice the Ornithopter to the Foundry to make a 4-4. And obviously a 4-4 on turn 1 is insane, enables you to start applying a ton of pressure and closing the game out. We've also got 2 copies of Hope of Giripa, which is also a Thopter, so Foundry plus Hope of Giripa allows us to make a 4-4 on turn 2 as well, which is an insanely fast start. So Retrofit Foundry, really good at enabling 4-4s on turn 1 or 2, but also enables us to grind into the mid to late game really well as well. Then we've got Machiko's Reign of Truth, so this is another card that enables us to start off with very aggressive starts. As you can see from the curve of the deck, we have a ton of really cheap artifacts, so it's very easy for us to flood the board and start producing a huge buff off Machiko's Reign of Truth. We also have a ton of evasive creatures. Ornithopter, Vault Scourge, and Hope of Giripa all have flying, as do the Thopters that we produce off Retrofit Foundry, so it's very easy for us to force through a bunch of damage in the air. Not many decks in the format have blockers with flying or reach right now, so that's a way that we can just close out games really quickly. It also counts enchantment, so it counts itself and in Soul Artifact, and then it transforms into a threat on the backside on the 3rd chapter as well. So Machiko's Reign of Truth gives us another way to just apply a ton of pressure in the early game. And then we've also got Soul Artifacts, so I'm a really big fan of this card right now because not only does it give us a bigger range of keepable hands, right? I think the big problem with the red-white Thopters deck was that the range of keepable hands wasn't as wide because you're kind of relying on either Retrofit Foundry or Machiko's Reign of Truth to get you there. Since we're now running the Soul Artifact as well, I think the range of keepable hands is a lot bigger. And Soul Artifact is really sick because it just enables us, similar to Machiko's Reign of Truth, to just apply a ton of pressure really quickly. Like I said, Ornithopter, Vault Scourge, and Hope of Giripa all have flying, so if we install them, we can just start attacking for 5 in the air as early as turn 2, which is really sick. It's particularly good on Vault Scourge because of the lifelink. I've won a ton of games against aggressive decks, particularly the red-based aggressive decks, where they're reliant on damage-based removal. By going Vault Scourge on turn 1, and then if they don't kill it immediately, we can just install it on turn 2, and we have a turn 2 5/5 flying lifelinker, which is obviously absolutely insane. You can also install Esper Sentinel. Obviously that's risky if the opponent has removal up, but if you manage to install the Esper Sentinel, even if the opponent kills it on a later turn, you're basically guaranteed to draw a card because the opponent's not going to be able to pay 5 to pay around the tax, so that exchange is then even for you. But the main reason I'm really excited for Install Artifact is because of its interaction with Darksteel Citadel, because you can install Darksteel Citadel and then you've just got a 5/5 indestructible, which is really hard for a lot of decks to beat, specifically Rakdos Midrange. I think Rakdos Midrange is definitely the deck to beat right now, and they have basically no way to beat Install Artifact on Darksteel Citadel, and it's very easy for us to assemble it as well because we can consistently find Darksteel Citadel off Ingenious Smith because we're running 4 copies. Now they do have some outs to it, they could have Liliana of the Veil or Shieldred's Edict, but that's not a consistent way to kill it because if you have another creature in play, you can just sacrifice that instead. The only other card that's able of breaking this up is Invoke Despair, which is a card that they don't commonly play, and Invoke Despair is pretty terrible against the rest of your deck anyway, so Install Artifact plus Darksteel Citadel is just sick in a ton of matchups, but specifically is very, very good against Rakdos Midrange, which is what I consider to be the top deck in the format right now. And like I said, Install Artifact also increases your range of keepable hands. Speaking of which, I think the same is true of Innovative Metatech. So this is a new card from the latest Alchemy set. It's a 2-mana 1/3, and whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you seek an online card with mana value 2 or less. Now, obviously, we're only running cards with mana value 2 or less because of Lurrus, which means that if we start connecting with artifact creatures, we just get to seek an online card from our deck every time, which is really sick because not only, like I said, does it enable us to keep more hands because, you know, we can keep hands with Retrofitter Foundry and Thopter, we can keep hands with artifacts and Machiko's Reign of Truth, similarly artifacts and Soul Artifacts, and now with Metatect, we can also keep hands with Esper Sentinel, Hope, or Vault Scourge into Metatect on turn 2 because that's such a sick curve out. Not only is this really good in the mid to late game when we start connecting in the air with our artifact creatures, you know, off stuff like Hope of Girapur, Vault Scourge, or tokens off the Retrofitter Foundry, but it also enables a really sick 1-2 punch where we can start getting card advantage straight away because one of the issues with these artifact aggro style decks is obviously Lurrus and Retrofitter Foundry provide you ways to grind into the mid to late game, but if the opponent is able to deal with both of those, you kind of grind to a halt, whereas getting repeated card advantage off the Metatect ensures that you just start pulling ahead immediately. And like I said, you know, you can have these curve outs where you just go Esper Sentinel, Vault Scourge, or Hope on turn 1, into Metatect on turn 2, attack, and just start getting card advantage straight away. And then obviously because we have a lot of stuff with evasion, we can start triggering this in the mid to late game as well. If we can consistently connect with this, you just pull way ahead. And every card that we seek off this is very impactful, right? We can get, you know, interaction like Portable Hole, we can get Machikos or Insouls or Retrofitter Foundries. If we have Retrofitter Foundry into Thopter on turn 1, into Metatect on turn 2, we attack with the 4/4, and then we can trigger and potentially hit another Ornithopter as well. So everything that we hit off the Metatect is very high value, and we can start pulling ahead in terms of card advantage straight away as well. Now, obviously, we do have to make some considerations to the deck in order to consistently enable turn 1 artifact creature into turn 2 Metatect, which is the main reason why I'm running stuff like Vault Scourge and Hope of Girapur. You know, I was previously running Barbed Spike in the red-white Thopters deck, and this is another reason why I'm kind of happy to be moving to blue-white because it enables us to cut probably the worst card in the deck, which was Barbed Spike. Hope of Girapur is in here partly because of Retrofitter Foundry, partly because it enables us to go turn 1 Hope into turn 2 Metatect to start seeking, but it's also a nice tool against the cards that are best against us. The two cards that are the most problematic for this deck are Divine Purge and Brotherhood's End, and Hope of Girapur does provide us with a way to play around that as well because we can attack with the Hope and then sack it to prevent the opponent from using a sweeper, similar to how Ranger Captain works. And then if we have Lurrus, we can start looping it as well to just, you know, stop the opponent from playing sweepers entirely, which is really sick. So Hope is really great at enabling Metatect, enabling Foundry, and also enabling us to play around Brotherhood's End and Divine Purge. Vault Scourge, like I've said, is very good with Soul Artifact, also very good with the Metatect, and it's also really sick with Machiko's Reign of Truth. You know, I was previously trying Ginger Brute in this slot, but I felt like Ginger Brute was really awkward because you need a mana to make it evasive, which makes, you know, it's a problem if you go turn 1 Ginger Brute into turn 2 Metatect and the opponent has a blocker, whereas Vault Scourge, the opponent has to have a flying blocker on turn 1 or 2 to be able to break this up, if that makes sense. And also I was trying Shadow Spear in the deck, and the fact that Vault Scourge just has lifelink on itself automatically is really sick because, you know, like I said, we can buff it with Machikos or Insoul, which is really, really powerful against the aggro deck. So I'm a big fan of Vault Scourge in this deck. Ornithopter is a little bit awkward with the Metatext because it has 0 power, so we can't deal combat damage with it, but I like running 4 copies in this deck because it enables you to have Foundry Thopter as often as possible. It's also really good with Machikos and Insoul Artifact as well. If I wasn't running these two, I probably wouldn't be running 4 Ornithopter, but since I am, I'm a big fan of this card as well. Even if you don't have, you know, even if you go Ornithopter into Metatect, you can still buff the Ornithopter with a Machikos or an Insoul to trigger the Metatect anyway, so that can still work out pretty well. Esper Sentinel is just one of the best 1-drops in the whole format, and this deck really abuses it really well because we want a high number of artifacts in the deck for Ingenious Smith and Machiko's Reign of Truth. It's great to buff with Machikos and Insoul as well because it makes it harder for the opponent to play around the tax on it. It also is very nice with the Metatext because going Esper Sentinel on turn 1 often incentivize the opponent to play a tap land instead of a piece of interaction, which then enables us to just go Metatect onto attack and then get a Seek immediately and start pulling ahead, which is really sick. Portable Hole is very, very important as just early interaction. I feel like you need turn 1 interaction right now to be able to kill Lana Elves and Elvish Mystic against the Devotion decks, to be able to kill Symmetry Sage and Dreadful Arcanist against Wizards. There's a ton of really good targets for this, you know, opposing Esper Sentinels, Thalias, there's just a ton of targets that you want to be able to hit with Portable Hole. You can find it off Ingenious Smith, which is really important in the matchups where that comes up, and it also provides a bigger buff off Machiko's Reign of Truth, which is really nice. And then that's basically all the cards in the main deck other than Lurrus. Like, Lurrus is such a great addition to this deck. Like I said, it gives us a way to grind into the mid to late game. There's a ton of really cool interaction with Lurrus as well. So say, for example, we have Retrofitter Foundry and Ornithopter. We can sacrifice the Ornithopter to make a 4/4 and then just bring it back with the Lurrus. So we can just make a free 4/4 every single turn off Lurrus, which is really good if the opponent doesn't have a way to kill it. Same thing with Hope of Girapur. And like I said, we can also attack with Hope of Girapur, sack it to stop the opponent playing Divine Pledge or Brotherhood's End, and then just immediately bring it back with Lurrus as well. And basically everything in the deck is great to bring back with Lurrus, right? Foundry is great, Scourge is great, Machiko's and Insol is really good. Specifically if the opponent does find a way to kill Insol, you can just bring it back and then equip a Darksteel Citadel again, for example. Bringing back Ingenious Smith is great. So Lurrus is really, really sick at just providing a mana sink and providing you a guaranteed way to grind into the mid to late game as well. And then in terms of the mana base, 22 lands might seem like a lot when the curve is so low in this deck, but I think it's really important for a couple of reasons. First of all, Lurrus is just one of the best mana sinks you can be running in the format, so even if you do flood out, just getting Lurrus into your hand and starting abusing that provides you a really good, insurance against flooding out. Additionally, Metatect really wants you to be running a pretty high land count, right? You want to be hitting your 3rd and 4th land when you have these starts where you go turn 1 artifact into turn 2 Metatect, because I have had a few games where I've been stuck on 2 lands and I've been connecting and getting a ton of stuff with Metatect, so I have a completely full grip of cards but just not enough mana to cast everything. So I feel like 22 lands is the right amount from what I've tested, and I definitely wouldn't go any lower. If anything, I could see an argument to going up to 23 lands, but I'm not really sure what I would cut to do that, to be honest. In terms of the actual lands themselves, we've got all of the good blue-white dual lands. Seachrome Coast is a great addition to this deck. Perfect card because we just want both colours of mana in the first couple turns. Single Plains as a hedge against Field of Ruin and Assassin's Trophy. Iganju because it's free to run as one of. And then for Darksteel Citadel, we can, we've got over 14 of both blue and white sources, so we can afford to run 4 colourless lands. And like I said, Darksteel Citadel, super important as a combination with Insol Artifact. Enables us to find lands off Ingenious Smith, which, kind of helps to address that issue where we struggle if we miss land drops. Like I said, if we've got Metatects going, we want lands. If we want Lurrus, we want lands as well. So Ingenious Smith finding Darksteel Citadel ensures that we keep hitting lands. And like I said, super important to find for Insol Artifact. Also increases the buff of Machiko's Reign of Truth as well. So that's the main deck. I've been really, really happy with it. I think Metatect is such a great addition to this deck at just giving you a way to pull ahead on card advantage early, and also another tool for you to grind into the mid to late game. And the other great thing about this deck is, even if you don't kill in the first few turns, which this deck is very capable of, you can have such powerful turns where you can swing in for 10-15 damage in one turn off the back of Machikos and Insols and stuff. So you don't have to necessarily play all-out aggro because of Metatect now. You can just build up resources and then just go for a huge turn if the opponent ever does tap out. So I'm a huge fan of Metatect, and I think it's a great addition to the deck. And then onto the sideboard. First of all, we've got 2 bits of Graveyard Hate. We've got 1 Tormod's Crypt, 1 Soul Guide Lantern. The reason I've gone for these 2 over something like Unlicensed Hearse is because this is a deck where you want to be curving out and you want to be applying pressure. And the great thing about a card like Tormod's Crypt is you can get Graveyard Hate in play that doesn't interrupt you curving out and doesn't, because the issue with Unlicensed Hearse is you have to take a spot off. If you play it on turn 2, you're not developing more to the board to enable you to apply pressure. This deck is all about applying pressure, and so Tormod's Crypt being 0 mana is great. I didn't want to run more than 1 Tormod's Crypt because it does have diminishing returns and drawing at multiples, which is why I'm running this single copy of Soul Guide Lantern. But yeah, these 2 are really great at just enabling you to get Graveyard Hate on the board against matchups where it's relevant, like Is It Phoenix and Kethis combo and stuff like that, without really interrupting your aggro curve out, if that makes sense. I could potentially see an argument to going up to a 3rd piece of Graveyard Hate, but I'm not really sure there's room in the sideboard. If I was going to run a 16th sideboard card, it would probably be a 3rd Soul Guide Lantern, but I'm not really sure there's room. Plus, there aren't that many Graveyard decks running about now from my experience. Then we've got 4 copies of Metallic Rebuke, so this is really, really important as just a counter spell. First of all, at stopping stuff like Brotherhood's End and Divine Purge. The big weakness of the red-white Thopters deck is they just didn't have a good way to stop that outside of maybe like Mana Tithe or Hope of Girapur. And Metallic Rebuke is significantly better at stopping those sorts of cards. So against decks that are likely to have Divine Purge and Brotherhood's End against you, like Blue-White Control and Rakdos Midrange, I basically always just side out Portable Hold because it's not great against either of those decks. The only thing you're going to hit against Blue-White Control is like Search for Azcanta or a token of Wandering Emperor or Shark Typhoon. Against Rakdos Midrange, they are going to run Bloodtithe Harvester, but you don't really want to be doing that. Most of their big threats are 3 and 4 mana, so Portable Hold just will sit in your hand doing nothing. And Metallic Rebuke is just great at stopping Brotherhood's End, stopping Divine Purge. And additionally, there are obviously other combo decks in the format, stuff like Goblin Childbelcher this is great against as well. So Metallic Rebuke is very good against decks that are likely to have Brotherhood's End and Divine Purge against you, and also just any combo deck where you need to be able to stop the opponent doing what they're trying to. And we've got 4 copies of Glass Casket as additional removal, so this is great against any deck where we want spot removal, like is it Wizards, Humans, just any deck that's running a lot of creatures. Very, very important against Auras as well. And so typically against those matchups, the very creature-heavy decks, I'll typically board out of Esper Sentinel and bring in Glass Casket. If we're against a deck where they're running a lot of must-kill creatures alongside non-creature spells, stuff like Blue-White Auras or Blue-Red Wizards, for example, I'll typically cut the Metatect and bring in the Glass Casket, because in those sorts of matchups, you're not really going to be winning off card advantage. You're more going to be winning off killing the opponent's early stuff and then just turning the corner with your aggro game plan. And then we've also got 4 copies of Hushbringer, so this is really, really important in a number of matchups. Very, very good against decks that gain a bunch of life to go way over the top of you, like Angels or Helioke. Very good against Goblins as well, which is another deck that's capable of going over the top of you because of stuff like Muxus. Very good against Humans. I also bring this in against the bigger Blue-White Affinity decks that are running stuff like Thought Monitor and Ingenious Smith there as well, to just shut off their most powerful cards. So Hushbringer, a really powerful tool. Whenever I bring in Hushbringer, I always board out of Ingenious Smith, just so there's no, kind of nombo in the deck, right? Because if you have these two together, then Ingenious Smith kind of does nothing, and you don't really want to be cutting anything else anyway, right? You don't really want to be cutting a 1-drop to make room for a 2-drop, and you don't really want to be cutting artifacts to make room for it either. So Hushbringer, like I said, really, really powerful tool against a lot of decks that abuse ETB effects to go over the top of you. Like recently I faced a Blink deck running Soul Herder, for example, and Hushbringer is obviously insane in that matchup as well. So that's the deck. I've been really happy with it. I feel like the low to the ground Lurus artifact decks have always been really powerful. I feel like in Soul Artifact plus Dark Citadel is really, really powerful, specifically against Rakdos Midrange and a lot of decks in the format. In Soul plus Vault Scourge is really good against aggro. Metatect is such a great addition to the deck as well. And I feel like with this sideboard, you have your bases covered in most matchups, right? Rebuke gives you a good way to play around Divine Purge and Brotherhood's End, as does Hope of Girapur. Glass Casket and Portable Hull, having 8 pieces of spot removal that you can find off Ingenious Smith is really good against decks like Auras or Wizards where you need that interaction. And Hushbringer is really great against a lot of the other decks that try and go bigger with you, but using their ETBs. So I think this deck is great. I've had a ton of fun playing with it. Next up, I've just got some gameplay with the deck. I've got 5 matches that I was playing with it on the ladder so you guys can see it in action. If you've got any questions or comments about the deck at all, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Big up. Okay, sweet. So we're on the play here. And yeah, this hand looks pretty good, right? We've got Hope on 1, into Metatect on 2, which on the play should be pretty sick. And we're against the Yorion deck, so I imagine they're on some sort of control, but considering they're running an 80-card deck, I think the chances of them having interaction on turn 1 isn't that high. So definitely going to lead on the Hope here and just, hopefully the opponent just has a tap land here. If they do, we can just get Metatect down on turn 2 and start producing card advantage. Okay, Triumph is perfect. So now we can run out the Metatect here, get in for 1 and start producing card advantage, start pulling ahead here. So we'll see what we hit. Okay, Ingenious Smith's pretty good. And then we've got Machikos and In Soul. We've also got the Darksteel Citadel, so... okay, interesting. I was thinking they might be on Emergent Ultimatum potentially because of the Zagoth Triumph, but it looks like they might just be on Niv with Yorion, which is interesting. So we'll attack first just to see what we hit. Another In Soul. Like, we have so much damage available now, so... Going to lead on the Ingenious Smith here. Okay, Retrofit Foundry is pretty nice. Now, there is a conversation here about whether it's better to play the Citadel out here or hold on to it, because we don't currently have an artifact in hand to trigger the Ingenious Smith for next turn, but getting the Citadel in play now enables us to potentially use In Soul Artifact on the Darksteel Citadel and be able to attack with it. Okay, so opponent uses Leyline Binding on the Foundry. I think I'm going to turn this Hope of Girapur into a 4/4. Now, there is definitely an argument to keeping the Hope as a 1/1 to trigger the Metatect, but considering we have 2 Machikos Reign of Truth, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to attack with the 4/4 next turn, and it's just additional damage. If we didn't have these Machikos, then I could definitely see, holding on to the Hope instead. Instead here, I'm just going to use the Machikos on the 4/4, see if they've got any removal. Okay, it doesn't look like they have anything here, which is pretty sick. And then I'm going to run out the other Machikos, probably targeting the Ingenious Smith here. And then definitely going to attack with the 2/7/7s. Actually, I think I'm going to attack with the Metatect as well. And then, wow, they choose to block the Metatect. Okay, I was thinking that there's no way that they can afford to just let that through, unless they have Deafening Clarion. If they have Clarion here, that could be a bit rough because they can gain 5 back. But if they don't, I think they're in real trouble. Okay, they just scoop it up. Sweet. So I think this matchup should be pretty good overall. You know, Niv isn't the most consistent deck, and them having Yorion as well is definitely going to compound that a bit. Portable Hole is good against Carvey, but I think that's the only card in their 80 card deck that it's going to be able to hit. We definitely want Rebuke here because they're going to have a ton of removal. They're going to have sweepers. They could maybe have Divine Purge and like Brotherhood's End. And then there is a consideration about bringing Hushbringer in over Ingenious Smith here, because Hushbringer does shut off Niv, which is pretty sick, but I feel like, you know, their deck is going to be full of so much removal that Hushbringer just isn't going to live anyway, I don't think. And Ingenious Smith being a 2-for-1 is probably better in the face of removal. Like we saw there, it was pretty good last game at just growing and applying pressure. So I could see an argument to bring in Hushbringer, but I don't think it's right when Niv is the only card it's going to stop and they're going to have a ton of removal anyway. So this hand looks pretty good. You know, we don't have a Thopter to go with this Foundry, but, you know, we can go Foundry on turn 1 into Smith. We have Rebuke as a counterspell and 2 Ensoul Artifacts as well. Okay. They happen to have the Carvu again, which is kind of rough. So we could go for the Hope here and then turn it into a 4-4, but considering the opponent has a 5-5 Carvu, I don't think that's great. Okay, we hit an Ornithopter, which is sick. So now we can turn Ingenious Smith into a 2-2. And now if they choose to attack with Carvu, we can just chump block with the Thopter, sack it into a 4-4 in response, and then we grow the Ingenious Smith as well. Okay, Widespread Thieving. So that's a bit of a concern with this Metallic Rebuke in hand, because it could get to a point where they have 3 mana open to pay for the Rebuke if they produce a bunch of treasures. Okay, interesting. So we've got quite a few options here. I don't think Ensoul Artifact is great when we have a 4-4 in play. We could go Hope into Ensoul. We could have just gone Machikos there, but I feel it's very important to hold open Metallic Rebuke here. You know, there are a number of cards that we'd want to be able to stop. I mean, maybe we should have just gone all out and just gone for the Machikos there and then not held open the Metallic Rebuke until the next turn when they could have Niv. And here, you know, the Assemble the team is obviously great, but I think it's best to hold on to Metallic Rebuke for whatever they tutor off the Assemble the team. And even though we didn't, you know, make the most of our turn there, I feel like it's not too bad because, you know, even if we are holding open mana for Rebuke, we can still use that mana on Retrofit a Foundry if we don't find anything better. Okay, so they take the opportunity to Leyline Binding the Smith, which makes sense. So here, I think I'm going to lead on the Machikos first, and then, you know, targeting the Hope, see if they've got a piece of removal. We can get him for 7 here. It doesn't look like the opponent has anything, which is 6. So this puts them down to 11. And now I think we're in a pretty sick spot because we can pass and hold open Rebuke. And we can Rebuke something and still have enough mana open to turn this 1-1 into a Thopter. And then if we can tap the opponent out, like if they go for a Niv here or something, we can just use double Ensoul plus the Machikos to just win next turn. I mean, we'll obviously see how it pans out. They could just pass with mana open, which would make that play a little bit riskier, but we're just hoping they tap out. You know, if they go for a Niv here or something, that would be ideal. We can just Rebuke it and then just go for lethal. But yeah, we'll see what they do. I could definitely see, you know, an argument to playing the Machikos a turn sooner, but then you kind of open yourself up to something like a Culling Ritual. You're right. If you tapped out there and they have Culling Ritual, you basically just lose on the spot. So I do feel like it was probably right to hold open Rebuke last turn. They Clarion. Interesting. I feel like I want to counter that because it stops them getting lifelink off the Carvu, and it also still potentially enables us to win next turn as well. Okay, we want to make sure that we tap so that we can still turn this 1-1 into a Thopter to potentially go for the double Ensoul next turn. So I'd love for them to tap out for something else here that isn't, like, impactful. Oh, wow, okay, they just put Yorion into hand. Okay, sick. Very happy to see that. Now we can turn this into a Thopter, and I very much doubt, you know, they could have Fragment Reality, but I doubt they're going to have much other 1-mana interaction here. So we can use Machikos on the 1-1 and then just Ensoul both of our Thopters here, which should just be good enough to close the game out. Okay, sick. We got there. Nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And yeah, this hand looks pretty decent, right? Esper Sentinel on turn 1 is always going to be good. You know, we have 2 Retrofitter Foundries, which is decent. You know, we obviously don't have a Thopter to go alongside it, but if we're against a grindy deck, having 2 Retrofitter Foundries can just, you know, win the game on its own in certain spots. And then Machikos plus Vault Scourge is kind of like another nice combo as well. Okay, so it looks like we're against another Artifact deck. So the opponent obviously off to a very good start there. They're going to get a turn 4 down on turn 1, but Esper Sentinel is also pretty good against a lot of the Artifact variants as well. So the opponent doesn't have Luris, so I have to imagine they're probably on the slightly bigger version running Nettle Cyst and Thought Monitor, which I think should be a kind of a good matchup because we just, you know, Luris gives us a way to grind against them, and we have, you know, we generally kill faster. Although having said that, obviously, you know, opponents off to a much faster start than us in this game. Okay, so they pass here, so that's, you know, almost certainly going to be a Metallic Rebuke if I had to guess. Oh, well, maybe not. I was thinking that the first Retrofitter Foundry would get countered there, but it didn't. So we're just going to run out the Ornithopter here. So now we have a 4/4 of our own. Going to run out the Vault Scourge, which is a great target for Machiko, especially in a mirror match like this. Not going to attack with the Esper Sentinel because they can obviously make a 1/1 here. And Sentinel is very good in this matchup. If they do attack with the 4/4, I think I'll take the trade here. But if they don't, then we're already kind of on the front foot. Okay, so they already have a Thought Monitor down, so that does get them a bit of card advantage. But, you know, having Machikos here should hopefully allow us to start racing pretty well. You know, this is the kind of situation where Vault Scourge is really nice. You know, buffing it with a Machikos or an Insole is pretty sick. So I'm going to lead on the Retrofitter Foundry, and then we could go for the Ingenious Smith, which is a card you generally want to get into play quite early, but I think just swing the life total race in our favour this quickly is going to make a big difference, right? It'll just put the opponent on the back foot. And since we are winning the race here, I'm definitely going to attack with the 4/4. I don't mind taking the trade. And then we'll see if they block with the Thought Monitor as well. Okay, choose just to block the 4/4 makes sense, but we put them down to 12, put ourselves back up to 19, which is pretty sick. And we get Machikos again next turn. So we have lost the 4/4, but, you know, we still get to buff the Vault Scourge up to a 6/6 lifelink, which is pretty nice. Okay, Barbed Spike is pretty annoying because they can mitigate the lifelink, right? We'll attack with the Vault Scourge. Wow, they give us a card of the Sentinel. That's a surprise. But yeah, if we attack with the Vault Scourge, even if it is buffed, they can just block with the Thopter and then sack it in response, so we don't get the lifelink, which is a bit annoying. Okay, they've got another Thought Monitor. So they are pulling ahead. I think this is a sort of matchup where even though it's like Hushbringer isn't as good as it is against certain other decks, I do think I want Hushbringer in this matchup because shutting off their Thought Monitor and Ingenious Smith just shuts off their ways of pulling ahead of us, which is pretty important. Wow, okay, that's a sick draw. That's really nice because now we can Portable Hole the Retrofitter Foundry, which stops them blanking the lifelink here. Okay, we're going to lead on the Ingenious Smith. Okay, hitting Darksteel Citadel is really nice here because we can now play around Esper Sentinel as well. There was potentially an argument to just going Portable Hole here and Vault Scourge, but I think getting Ingenious Smith into play as early as possible is going to make a fairly big difference. So now we can Portable Hole the Retrofitter Foundry, forces them to activate the Foundry now, and then we can swing in for 6 again. And they can't blank the lifelink anymore, which is nice. Yeah, thinking about it, maybe it was kind of risky for me to go Ingenious Smith there, because if we didn't hit a Darksteel Citadel, we would have had to give them a draw off their Esper Sentinel. But I also feel like we kind of need another impactful creature on the board. So maybe it was worth the risk, not 100% sure. You know, maybe it's better to just go Portable Hole Vault Scourge and save Ingenious Smith for this turn. So they hit a Nettle Cyst. I was going to say, if they play the Nettle Cyst, they have to give us a draw off Esper Sentinel, so they're waiting a turn to play it, which makes sense. But either way, I'm not too worried about Nettle Cyst, as long as they don't find Shadow Spear, because we can get Luris into hand and just start looping Ornithopters, which basically just blanks the Nettle Cyst, right? Because we can just chump block whatever creature they attack with and sack it to the Foundry in response. So as long as they don't draw a Metallic Rebuke next turn, I think we should be good because we can just put Luris into hand here. And we're also getting Machikos transforming into a creature, which should stop them attacking on the ground with any 4/4s or anything like that. So it looks like the opponent's thinking about moving the Barb Spike around here. Probably going to put it on the Sentinel if they do, just to tax us a little bit more. I think unless we draw something crazy good here, I'm probably interested in just putting Luris into hand. Because like I said, Luris looping Ornithopters every turn, not only is it going to be very difficult for them to stop, because I very much doubt their main decking Glass Casket. You know, their only real out to stop Lurrus is exactly Metallic Rebuke this turn. Okay, they didn't draw it, so that's great. So they do get one turn here where they can go Nettle Cyst and equip it to a flyer. We can just chump block with the Volt Scourge this turn, though, which we're fine with. And also there was, potentially a reason to play the Volt Scourge last turn if they had a portable hole for the draw, but I felt like it's better to be more mana efficient and just use the mana making a 2/2 of Retrofit Foundry. But again, you know, if they had happened to draw a portable hole, we might have regretted it because they could portable hole the Volt Scourge, equip the Nettle Cyst to the Thought Monitor, and then attack him for a huge amount. But shouldn't end up making a difference here, I think. We can just chump block here with the Volt Scourge, make a token with the Retrofit Foundry at the end of our turn, and then next turn we can just go Lurrus, start bringing back Ornithopter. And unless they can find Shadow Spear, I think that's going to be very difficult for them to beat. So we can Lurrus here, get back the Ornithopter, and then again I could see an argument to playing the Volt Scourge here because, I mean, I'm definitely going to attack with the Portrait just to start, you know, make them stop chump blocking, which will reduce the amount of power Nettle Cyst gives them. But yeah, I mean, I could see an argument to going Volt Scourge here, because if they find a portable hole, they could portable hole the Ornithopter. I mean, even if they do, they're still, you know, it's only going to be 12, so we'll survive. So I think I'm just going to pass. You know, if they don't have portable hole, we can sacrifice the Ornithopter to make a 4/4. Okay, they just scoop it up. And then we could have just made another token off the other Foundry. So this is definitely a matchup. You know, Hushbringer isn't as good in this matchup as it is against something like Goblins or Humans, but since Thought Monitor and Ingenious Smith are the main ways they pull ahead, I'm just going to bring it in here in place of my own Ingenious Smith. And then I think I might just run it back, right? Glass Casket isn't great because, I mean, they could be running stuff like Psy, which we might regret not having removal for, but it doesn't look like they're running that sort of build. If they do, I could potentially see swapping out something for Glass Casket. But outside of that, you know, Metallic Rebuke is fine here, but not the best, especially if they've got Esper Sentinel. And Portable Hole is generally much more important than Glass Casket because it can take out opposing Retrofit Foundries and opposing Portable Holes. So I think I'm pretty happy with the sideboarding. If I do see something like a Psy or an Emery post sideboard, then I'll definitely look to fit Glass Casket in. But as things stand, I think, you know, our version of the deck should be pretty well set up here. You know, we get to close the game out a lot faster. We can swing the life total race. We also have access to Lurrus, which, you know, was pretty big in that last game. So pretty optimistic about this one, I think. Okay. This hand is pretty terrible, though. Definitely got to mull that. I don't think it's worth keeping a one-lander with this deck unless you have Thopter Foundry, so I think we have to mull again, unfortunately. Okay, this is keepable. It's a bit unfortunate that we have to put stuff back here. We have to put 2 cards back. So I'm going to put back those 2 and hope that this works out. It is kind of annoying here because you do kind of want to have a decent number of lands. So thinking about it, maybe it's better to put back a Machikos and keep a land here, because if we can get Metatect in play and start attacking with the Volt Scourge, we're going to start seeking stuff, and if we don't hit land drops, we're just going to end up with a bunch of cards in hand and not enough mana to cast it. Okay, so looks likely that the opponent has Metallic Rebuke here. So I don't want to run out the Metatect because that feels like one of the most important cards here. I mean, throwing away Foundry into Rebuke doesn't feel great either, but I feel like with only 2 lands, Foundry's not really going to be doing that much. So yeah, I'm already kind of regretting keeping the Machikos here. I think I probably should have put the Machikos back and kept the 3rd land. Because, you know, we kept a hand off Scourge plus Metatect, which wants, you know, you want lands to be able to cast what you seek off it. I mean, having said that, the opponent's already down to 2 cards in hand. Okay, one of them is a Thopter, so that's a 4/4 for them. Yeah, I'm definitely regretting not keeping this 3rd land now. So run up the Metatect. Unfortunately, we can't attack with it, but if they turn this Ornithopter into a 4/4, we can start attacking in the air next turn. Okay, so opponent makes a 4/4. See what else they draw here. Okay, they've got a Nexus, interesting. So I assume they attack with the 4/4 here. Definitely going to let that through. And now the Nexus can be animated to trade with the Volt Scourge. So we're not guaranteed to connect here, but I mean, I don't mind trading a 1/1 for one of their lands anyway. But yeah, like, I am definitely getting punished pretty hard here for not keeping the third land. Okay, so they trade with the Blink Moth. Makes sense. Wow, I don't get why they did that, though, because that just stops them being able to cast... use the Foundry to make a 1/1. And I think I'm just going to run out Ornithopter and the Metatect here. And then next turn we can potentially Machikos on the Ornithopter to start attacking in the air. Or we could potentially just install the Ornithopter to stop them attacking with the 4/4. Wow, they're considering not attacking? Okay, but definitely going to let that through. Let's see what else they got here. Yikes. Okay, I mean, I was thinking about Machikos on the Ornithopter, but I think at this point we probably have to just install on the Ornithopter here. Because we have to shock in to stop giving them a card off the Esper Sentinel. And down to 9, you know, the opponent could make another 4/4 here. So I think we just have to install the Ornithopter and just pass, which is kind of annoying. You know, them finding another potential way to make a 4/4 there is kind of frustrating. Okay, so they make a 1/1, so that means, you know, that's clever of the opponent because it basically just stops us attacking in the air. Wow, okay, and Genius Smith's a pretty good draw here. Oh no, okay, that's an absolute disaster. I think we've probably lost this one now. You know, Ornithopter with Insol basically, you know, just about stabilised us, but now they've got the Portable Hole and an Ingenious Smith. I think we're probably too far behind now. Had they not found the Portable Hole there, I think we're in with a shout, but yeah, I don't think we've got any way to win this one now. So that one was kind of unfortunate. We did mull to 5, and I think if they hadn't found that Portable Hole then, that would have been a closer game for sure. No changes to sideboard, you know, we didn't see Sai. I don't think they're running Sai or Emery from what we've seen, so pretty happy to just run it back as is. And yeah, even though we did mull to 5 there, that game did feel pretty close until they got that Portable Hole there, I think. So yeah, overall from my experience, this matchup has felt pretty good. I definitely prefer this version of the Artifact decks over the other one. You know, it has the speed and the grindability that the red-white deck had, but you also get blue for counter spells. Like Metallic Rebuke is so important against Brotherhood's End, and you also get, you know, in Soul plus Citadel, really good against Rakdos and a lot of other decks. And you also have, you know, the Metatect, which is really strong at pulling you ahead as well. So this hand is really nice. I mean, we don't have a Retrofit Foundry, but we've got Sentinel on turn 1, into Metatect on turn 2. Sentinel is very, very good in this matchup because a lot of their best cards are non-creature spells, especially stuff they want to play in the early game like Retrofit Foundry, Portable Hole. We haven't seen Springleaf Drone or Moonsnare Prototype yet, but I think there's a good chance they're running those as well. So we'll see what the opponent has here. Okay, so they have a Sentinel of their own, which is a little bit unfortunate. It stops us attacking them with ours. And they have an Ornithopter which blanks our Vault Scourge as well. So I don't think it's worth playing Metatect here because we just don't have clean attacks with the Sentinel. I think I'm just going to run out the Vault Scourge and the Hope of Girapur here. And, you know, there is potentially an argument to running out the Ornithopter as well, but I think it's probably worth holding on to that in case we draw an Ingenious Smith, and then we can get a trigger on it immediately. And, you know, the main reason you'd want to run out an Ornithopter is so that if the opponent killed Vault Scourge and Hope, you could still have something to Insol. But since we already have both Vault Scourge and Hope, I don't really think it's worth running out just yet. Wow, they blank on the Ingenious Smith. Okay, that's pretty big. Definitely, I imagine the opponent's not going to attack here, right? They don't want to throw away the Sentinel. Wow, okay, Hushbringer's pretty sick. I think I'm going to run out the Metatect here, though, because we're guaranteed to get a Seek trigger off it. And I'm not too concerned about getting Hushbringer into play until they get to Thought Monitor mana. I mean, there is an argument to just getting it into play now to stop any future Ingenious Smiths they've got. Okay, we hit another Ornithopter, so I mean, I don't mind playing one of them out. I'm going to hold on to the second one in case we draw. Oh, no, wait, I'm an idiot. I've cut Ingenious Smith from the deck. Whoops, I forgot about that. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could have gone for Hushbringer last turn, but then we miss out on the Seek on Metatect, so... But I guess now we're vulnerable to Metallic Rebuke and Portable Hole on it. Pithing Needle is an interesting one. I wonder what they name it. I mean, if they name Retrofit Foundry, surely that's not great because I can't imagine that the opponent would have cut their own Retrofit Foundry. Wow, they do. Okay. I mean, yeah, if they've kept in Ornithopter, surely they've kept in their own Retrofit Foundry as well. Interesting. Anyway, we're going to lead on attacking with both the flyers here. So we get another Seek off the Metatect. Okay, another Hushbringer. I mean, they're getting close to Thought Monitor mana, so I definitely want to try running out the Hushbringer here. If they do Metallic Rebuke, we at least get to draw a card off the Sentinel, which is something. Okay, they do Rebuke, which makes me think they might have a Thought Monitor or another Ingenious Smith in hand. I'd love to play out the Foundry here, but we don't want to give them a card off the Esper Sentinel. Okay, they've got another Ornithopter. Really hope their last card isn't a Thought Monitor. That would be kind of rough. Oh, it is. Okay, so maybe we got punished for not playing the Hushbringer earlier, but we've drawn 2 cards off the Metatect by playing it that turn, so I'm not 100% sure what the right line was. And we only really get punished by them having exactly Metallic Rebuke last turn anyway. Plus, you know, we've still got another Hushbringer in hand, so we can still shut off their Thought Monitors for the rest of the game anyway. Okay, sweet. Now we've actually got lands, so we can start casting the stuff that we've drawn off the Metatect. So I'm going to run out the Hushbringer first here. Just want to make sure we get that one out. And then I don't think it's worth playing the Insult. At this point in the game, we don't want to give them any cards off the Esper Sentinel if we can avoid it. Going to run out the Foundry here just in case we draw a Portable Hole, right? We can potentially Portable Hole their Pithing Needle, and then Foundry's back online. We can just start making 4/4s. So yeah, I feel we're in a pretty good spot now. You know, their best cards that help them pull ahead in this spot are Thought Monitor and Genius Smith. We already have a Hushbringer in play to stop that. And, you know, we can just start using Lurrus soon as well if we need. You know, we could potentially use Insole on the Vault Scourge to make it very difficult for them to race. So the only thing here is if we go for Insole and we pay for the Sentinel tax, we can't put Lurrus into hand, but I think it's probably worth it because if we start applying pressure here now, it's going to be very difficult for them to race. It puts them on the back foot, and we don't have great stuff to rebuy with the Lurrus yet anyway, right? We've only got Hushbringer in the graveyard, so I think I'm going to do this and wait. Now, they can trade with the Vault Scourge here if they want, but then we do have good stuff in the graveyard to get back with Lurrus, so... And they lose basically all of their flyers, which would mean that we could potentially start getting in and triggering the Metatect again. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this trade. The graveyard is going to start filling up with stuff that we can rebuy with Lurrus now, so depending on what we draw next turn, I'd be probably pretty happy to just put Lurrus into hand and then play it. You know, get it into play before they have a chance to draw another Metallic Rebuke. And then once we've got that in play, you know, we could replay the Insole, we could replay the Vault Scourge, we could replay the other Hushbringer to play around Portable Hole as well. Okay, they did find another Ingenious Smith, but that just gets shut off straight away by the Hushbringer. We're at 17, so we can definitely let this 3 damage through as well. And then if we don't draw anything great, we can still just go Lurrus. Okay, Ornithopter is obviously not ideal here when the Retrofitter Foundry's shut off. Still think I'm just going to play the Lurrus out here just so that it doesn't get hit by Metallic Rebuke. And then I think I'm just going to pass bluffing the Ornithopter in hand because even if we found a Portable Hole and started using the Retrofitter Foundry, we don't really have great uses for this Ornithopter. Okay, opponent just scoops it up. Sick, we got there. Nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And yeah, this is great, right? We've got Foundry plus Stopter on turn 1 and turn 2, which is sick, plus the Metatect. So yeah, this hand is sick. And we also have Portable Hole for interaction as well. So yeah, very, very good hand here. So we'll see what the opponent's on. Okay, Mono Green, interesting. And Paradise Druid. Okay, so I assume we're against Devotion here then, if I had to guess. I get to turn the Thopter into a 4/4. And then we can run out the Metatect here. Very much doubt they're going to be blocking with the Paradise Druid, so we get to connect here, get a Seek off the Metatect, assuming they don't block. I mean, either way we'd be happy. If they block, that just slows down their ability to ramp. Okay, we hit an Ingenious Smith, which is great, and then we can run out another Ornithopter, so even if they have Khan here, we can just kill it straight away. So we'll see what they play. Got access to 4 mana here, so I mean, they could play like Old Growth Troll, or, okay, interesting. They could go for Kiora now, potentially. Kiora, untap the Paradise Druid. Okay, interesting. So they do go for Kiora. So, I mean, honestly, you know, I think we're probably better off just ignoring Kiora at this point. Okay, they untap the Wolfwillow Haven. Wow, and they just pass. What could that mean? I mean, surely the only thing I could think of that they could have is Boseiju. Unless they just untapped by mistake. I mean, either way, I think we're in a great spot here. I'm going to... I kind of want to run out the Citadel first here because then we have a land that we can just Ensoul and attack with immediately. There is an argument to potentially holding it to trigger the Ingenious Smith the next turn, though. Okay, we attack. So they do have the Boseiju. Kind of makes sense. That's what we predicted. I think we want to play this untapped. And we get to get in for 5 here. We get to seek off the Metatect anyway. So we'll see what we hit first. Okay, interesting. So I think we just want to run out Ingenious Smith here. And then I definitely want to portable hold the Paradise Druid just to slow down the opponent's ability to ramp next turn. So we'll take out the Paradise Druid here. And then I think I'm going to run out the Darksteel Citadel now because we already have an artifact in hand to trigger the Smith next turn. And this enables us to Ensoul the Darksteel Citadel here. I mean, against mono green, it probably won't make much of a difference. You know, we could very easily Ensoul the Foundry instead. Okay, they do have the Cavalier, but I mean, we have so much stuff on board that I think we can just afford to attack around it at this point. Okay, thankfully they didn't find a Nykthos, which is obviously good for us. Okay, they do have Llanowar Elves as another blocker, which is a bit annoying. So, I mean, I think we just, you know, we just want to attack and apply as much pressure as possible here. So I think we want to lead on Ensouling the Darksteel Citadel. We could, like I said, we could Ensoul the Retrofitter Foundry instead, which would enable us to have another land. But we're basically, you know, we're going to run out of hand here anyway, so going down to 4 actual lands isn't really much of an issue. And then I think we'll just attack them directly with everything. And, you know, if they block the 4/4 with the Cavalier of Thorns and the Citadel with the Llanowar Elves, we're still getting in for 5 damage here, which puts them down to 6. I guess they do have Storm the Festival next turn. Wow, they choose not to block with the Llanowar Elves. I mean, I guess that guarantees that they can cast Storm the Festival from the graveyard next turn, which is probably their only way of winning from this point. So that kind of makes sense. I guess the opponent's playing to their outs there. But I still don't know if that'll be good enough, right? I don't know what they could possibly hit. Maybe if they hit 2 Cavaliers here. That could... I don't know, that still wouldn't be good enough, right? I don't know what they could hit here, really. Okay. Yeah, that's not going to be good enough. Okay, sweet. So we got that. Nice. So sideboarding... Interesting matchup here. I mean, I kind of want the Hushbringers over the Ingenious Smiths here to shut off Cavaliers and, you know, the Death Trigger on Old Growth Troll. I mean, it's close, though. I could potentially see keeping in Smith instead. And then I don't think Esper Sentinel is that great here because they're so good at producing excess mana. And I do think, obviously, Metallic Rebuke is going to be very good at countering their payoff cards like Karn, Storm the Festival, Cavalier. So pretty happy with how we sideboarded there. I don't know if Hushbringer is that much better than... what am I saying? That much better than Ingenious Smith. But, you know, it does stop the Cavalier and the Old Growth Troll, so... Okay, so, I mean, the main reason I kept this hand was because of Portable Hole, right? Being able to Portable Hole their early stuff is super important. You know, we can Portable Hole the Wolfwillow Haven here and stop them ramping into Karn. And now we have both Vault Scourge and Ornithopter. We can Ensoul them. You know, we could Ensoul and hold open Rebuke as well, which is pretty nice. Okay, so they do have Kiora. Again, I think we're probably better off ignoring it. It has such high loyalty, and we just want to race it and deal as much direct damage as we possibly can. Okay, so we're definitely going to use the Ensoul here. I mean, we could Ensoul the Ornithopter for extra damage to kill the Kiora. I'm not 100% sure this is the right line. I think, you know, it could potentially be better to kill the Kiora here since they're at 20. We could have used Ensoul on the Ornithopter and then attacked the Kiora with both. Yeah, thinking about it, I probably did misplay there because the life gain isn't really going to be that relevant and we're missing a potential damage every single turn by not Ensouling the Ornithopter. So, I don't know. It's close though, and we have the second Ensoul in hand already, so not 100% sure. Either way, we get to put the opponent down to 5 here. Even if they have another Cavalier, then I don't think that's going to be good enough, right? Because we can just attack with both creatures. We got another Volt Scourge here. So even though I think I might have misplayed, maybe I should have equipped the Ornithopter first. I mean, to be honest, the way things are planned out, I'm glad I attacked face because we put them on a faster clock. I'm just not sure whether we should have equipped the Ornithopter first, if that makes sense. But we got there anyway. Okay, sweet. So we're going second here. And wow, okay. I mean, if I knew the opponent was playing auras or something, you could maybe keep that, but definitely not in the dark. Okay, this hand is not great, but more keepable for sure. I think I don't mind putting back the Hope here, just because, you know, we've already got... Oh, wow, okay. I'm very glad we kept 3 lands because we drew the Metatect. But yeah, I didn't really feel like we needed 2 turn 1 flies. I feel like the Hope is generally weaker against, you know, when you don't have the Retrofitter Foundry. Okay, Dragon's Rage Channeler into Inquisition, so not 100% sure what we're up against here. Could be just Jund Midrange, maybe. And I kind of don't want them to take the Metatect, because if they do take the Metatect, we can just... if they don't take the Metatect, we can just start producing card advantage. Okay, they do, which makes sense. I think we just have to kill the Channeler here, you know. That's just going to smooth out their draws for the rest of the game. I imagine they're probably running some sort of graveyard synergy as well. Now, I think it's probably correct to play the Fountain tap there, because we're only playing 4 Sea Chrome Coast, so the chances of drawing an extra one are pretty low, but I don't want to give away what our card for the turn was, really, if I can avoid it. Okay, Sentinel's not bad here, so now we can go Sentinel and Machiko's on the Volt Scourge and start swinging for a lot. So we get him for 5 here. Now, that does mean the opponent's going to be able to attack with the 2-2 and start ramping, which is a bit of an issue, but if they don't find removal for the Volt Scourge, we can just start, you know, swinging the life total race in our favour. Okay, they got Fatal Push. Just got to hope they don't have another piece of removal here, or we could be in trouble. Okay, they attack with a 2-2. Shocking the Blood Crypt. Okay, another Fable. So we at least get in for another swing with the Volt Scourge here, which is pretty nice. Okay, Ornithopter not the best draw here, to be honest. I mean, that does buff the Machiko's Rain of Truth, which is pretty nice. I mean, either way, we're going to put Lyrus into hand, and I think I'm going to play out the land here and just run out the Ornithopter. Now, that is... maybe that was kind of risky, because if they have Croxer or Liliana, then we do lose the Lurus. So, thinking about it, that might have been a misplay, actually. Oh, wow, they had a Croxer and they discarded it. Okay, yeah, that was my bad. I definitely should have kept the Ornithopter in hand to play around Croxer, because I assume if they discarded Croxer, they probably have another one. Okay, they got Tarmogoyf. Okay, they had a Seasoned Pyromancer, so that kind of makes sense now then. I mean, we got quite lucky. I think I did make a mistake there. I should have held on to the Ornithopter in case the opponent had... Oh, wow. Okay, they had the Thoughtseize anyway. Wow, Machiko's off the top. I mean, that just wins us the game out of nowhere. Okay, that was obviously very lucky, and I did think I think I did misplay not holding on to the Ornithopter there, but thankfully it didn't end up mattering. Okay, sick. Managed to steal that one. So against Jund midrange, I mean, typically against Rakdos midrange, which is the most popular midrange deck in the format right now, I usually just board out of Portable Hole and board into Metallic Rebuke. Portable Hole is kind of more appealing to keep in this matchup because they're running Tarmogoyf. I presume they're also running Blood Tithe Harvester, but I still think it's probably worth just bringing in the Metallic Rebuke, because you want Metallic Rebuke in the mid-range matchups. Portable Hole isn't that great. You know, it can kill Tarmogoyf, it can kill Blood Tithe Harvester, but they're going to be bringing Artifact removal against you, so it's not even that great as an answer. And because they're bringing stuff like Brotherhood's End against you, you want the Metallic Rebuke to be able to counter Brotherhood's End, to be able to counter Shieldred as well. Okay, unfortunately, I hate mulling against Thoughtseize decks, but you can't keep a one-lander against Rakdos. So we do go down to... Oh, wow, Flamestoker. I wasn't expecting that. I think I'm going to run out both, or maybe just... not sure whether we want to run out both Ornithopters here. I think we probably do, because then if they kill one, we can still Machiko's the other one. But yeah, so I just run out both Ornithopters here, see what the opponent does. But yeah, Flamestoker is an interesting one. I mean, that card is definitely powerful. I haven't gotten around to testing it out in Historic yet, though. Wow, okay, and Soul Artifact is a sick draw. So now we can go Darksteel Citadel and just Ensoul it straight away. There is definitely an argument to going Metatect into Machiko's, but I don't want to risk Ensoul getting hit by a top deck Thoughtseize or Inquisition. I think Insol is going to be one of the hardest cards for them to beat. Although I guess they are in Jund, so they could very well have Beseiju. They could very well have Assassin's Trophy or Maelstrom Pulse as well. So it's not as good against Jund as it is against Rakdos, but I still think they're really going to struggle to deal with it. Okay, so they go for Fable here. And they choose not to attack. Okay, interesting. So we've got quite a few options here. I mean, we could go Metatect, but I feel like since they didn't attack, they're definitely going to be blocking here. So I kind of want to go for Machikos, but it's close here. We could also install the Ornithopter, but I feel like that's kind of unnecessary when we have Machikos, which is generally safer. You know, installing an Ornithopter when they could just have Fatal Push doesn't seem that great. So it's kind of between Machikos and Metatect. I feel like since they didn't attack, they're probably going to be chump blocking the Citadel here, so I don't really feel like Metatect is really helping that much. At least going for Machikos here really starts to put the clock on the opponent, right? They have to kind of act now, or they're just going to start falling too far behind. You know, they probably need to keep back another creature to block the Citadel with. We get to buff the Ornithopter again with the Machikos this turn. Okay, they just attack with a Flamestoker. I guess they just didn't want to block with that. So now we can buff the Ornithopter again, and now I'm pretty happy to run out the Metatext because we can guarantee a Seek off the Ornithopter attack. Start pulling ahead on card advantage, which is going to be really big in this matchup because, you know, Rakdos and Jund typically operate playing 1-for-1, and so, you know, pulling ahead on card advantage is going to be pretty sick. Now they do get Reflection, which is going to be an issue, especially if they have something like a Blood-Tithe Harvester. Oh, they do. Yikes. Okay, that's pretty bad. So, I mean, any way to buff this Ornithopter or any way to kill the Harvester is what we're looking for here, I think. So we can install the Ornithopter. And I could have potentially gone for Ingenious Smith to try and find Portable Hole, but we're guaranteed to get a Seek off the Metatect here, right? Because of the Ornithopter. So we can potentially seek a Portable Hole, which would stop them copying Harvester. Oh, yikes. Okay, we didn't hit one. I mean, I still feel like that's probably the right line because they need to kill the Ornithopter here. If they don't have a way to kill Ornithopter, they just lose. And they don't have enough blood tokens to use the Harvester to kill the Ornithopter. So I feel like that was probably a better line. You know, Ingenious Smith, it makes us more likely to find the Portable Hole to kill the Blood-Tithe Harvester, but you know, it's not a guarantee. Wow, them attacking is a bad sign here. That probably means they found a Fatal Push or... Well, I guess it needs to be exactly Fatal Push here for them to survive. Wow, they have it. Okay. So that kind of sucks. I mean, we do still have a turn to find Portable Hole here. Wow. Oh, I guess they couldn't shock in that Blood Crypt because they're at 1. I was surprised why they didn't, you know, use the Blood-Tithe Harvester then. So I think we really want to kill this Harvester if we can. So I think we're going to lead on the Ingenious Smith to try and find a Portable Hole here. Okay, I mean, that's obviously not a Portable Hole, but it's also not the worst because they now also need to kill the Vault Scourge. And we can't attack with the Darksteel Citadel here because they've got a 5/6 Tarmogoyf. So I think I'm just going to run out the Foundry. I mean, we might have just fallen too far behind here, right? Because they can make 2 copies of the Harvester, kill the Citadel, kill the Portrait of Machiko, or I guess kill the Darksteel Citadel, kill the Vault Scourge, and then they can just keep picking apart our board every turn after that. Yeah, so now they take out the Vault Scourge, so we basically just need to find a Portable Hole off this Ingenious Smith to have a chance here, I think. But yeah, we'll see what the opponent does here. Yeah, if we go Ingenious Smith, find a Portable Hole. Wow, they used the Blood-Tithe Harvester. Do they have a second one? Wow, that really surprises me because now they've just lost their ability to pick apart our board. I feel like if they just passed there, then we're in a really rough spot because they can just keep copying the Harvester every single turn. Wow, whiffed off the Smith. That's kind of rough. And now we're getting punished for not playing our cards in a different order, right? We could have potentially... Although, to be honest, I think it's probably better to use the Foundry activation here anyway. Because then we buff the Portrait and the Ingenious Smith. Actually, thinking about it, I might have punted there. Maybe I should have just gone for Although, no way. I was thinking maybe we could have spent our mana going retrofit a Foundry token, turning it into a Thopter to attack for that last point of lethal, but we don't have enough mana to go make a token, untap, and make a Thopter. So I think this is fine, right? We have enough mana here to make the 1/1, and then we can turn it into a Thopter next turn and attack in the air. I mean, Scavenging Ooze is a bit annoying. Oh, okay. That's a pretty sick draw. I mean, Scavenging Ooze is a little bit annoying, but they only have 1 green mana, so they can only buff their life total by 1, unless they happen to draw another green land off the top. So interesting spot here. We definitely want to turn this 1/1 into a Thopter for next turn. I think we can afford to run out the Machikos here as well. I mean, we could just put Lurrus into hand, but I feel like I want to go Machikos here because then we kind of guarantee the win next turn if they don't have a way to kill our Thopter, right? Just trying to think what we want to buff here. So we're getting a buff of +5/+5, right? I mean, maybe it's a waste using it on the portrait because it's already pretty big. You know, we can use it as a blocker. But I mean, I don't know. There's no point in attacking here, to be honest, because they can just copy the Tarmogoyf and block with it anyway. So I think we're just going to pass here, keep everything back on defense, and then if they don't draw a removal spell for the Thopter, or for the 1/1, we can just sack the 1/1, make a Thopter, and then just buff it with the Machikos and hopefully win next turn. Even if they use a Scavenging Ooze to go up to 3, that's not going to be enough. Right, even if they draw another green land and go up, go up 2 life, we can still just buff the Thopter. Wow, okay. Seasoned Pyromancer is a very good draw for them because now they can just copy the Seasoned Pyromancer and keep drawing until they find a Fatal Push. Wow, they pushed the portrait. I mean, that has to be a mistake, right? Because now we can just make a Thopter and just attack in the air to win next turn. I feel like if they just hold on to that Fatal Push, they probably are in a really good spot. But now we can just make a 1/1. They don't even have mana left to go up to 2 life now, and we can just attack in the air. But yeah, I mean, even if they had held on to the Fatal Push, like, I think we were in a reasonable spot before they were able to copy the Bloodtide Harvester anyway. But yeah, we got that either way, so pretty happy with that. Okay, so we're going second here. And yeah, I think this hand's reasonable. Not amazing, but we have early interaction, which is going to be very relevant against certain decks. If we don't need to kill something early, turn 1 Esper Sentinel is going to be great. We have Ornithopter that we can potentially Ensoul if the opponent's not running that much removal. Metatect is also a great draw here. So I want to play the Ornithopter out here because if the opponent kills the Sentinel, we can then Ensoul the Ornithopter and start attacking him for 5. I mean, again, we don't really know what deck we're up against. If the opponent's running a lot of interaction, that could be risky. I guess the alternative is we could potentially Ensoul the Esper Sentinel. I mean, in general, I'm not very high on using Ensoul on a creature if the opponent has mana open. If the opponent taps out here, though, I could potentially see, if they play a creature bigger than Esper Sentinel, I could potentially see Ensouling the Esper Sentinel. And then even if the opponent does use a removal spell on it, we're basically guaranteed to draw a card because they can't pay 5 for the tax. Wow, Godless Shrine pass. Interesting. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to shock in the Hallowed Fountain and hold the Arganjo in case we keep drawing lands. We might want to use this Arganjo as a removal spell later. Like I said, I don't want to use Ensoul on a creature if the opponent has removal up. So just going to run out the Metatect, attack with the Sentinel, and hopefully get a Seek trigger here. Now, they could obviously have removal for the Sentinel or the Metatect here, but we'll see what they do. They must have something or they wouldn't have shocked that land in. Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, that's kind of a blowout, right? We lose the Metatect and the Sentinel here. I mean, at least we get to draw a card off the Sentinel trigger, but interesting, though. I wasn't expecting to be against Madness, and it's interesting they're running white. Most Madness decks are just base black-red, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the white is for here. Okay, they got Crucius. That's kind of a concern because they're just going to be able to fix their hand now. Although I have heard that Crucius is bugged right now. I don't know if they've fixed that or not, but I've seen reports of people saying that they pitch a 3-drop naming Ambitious and they get another 3-drop, which shouldn't be possible. So this is super risky, but I feel like I have to go for this here just to start racing. If they have a piece of removal spell, we could get punished, but the alternative here is just going Vault Scourge, Metatect or Vault Scourge in Soul, right? Portable Hold doesn't do anything, and I feel like we want to start racing. You know, like I said, we could have gone Vault Scourge in Soul, but we get even more blown out there if they have removal. Wow, they attack with both. Yeah, I feel like, you know, obviously installing Ornithopter is very risky because the opponent could have removal here, but if they're relying on red damage-based removal, stuff like I mean, they would need another Lightning Axe to kill it. If they're running stuff like Unholy Heat or Fiery Impulse, that's not going to do it. And just doing things this way means we can actually, you know, potentially race the opponent. Okay, they do have a Sentinel of their own, and it's 2 power off the Clement, which means it's going to be hard to pay around the tax. Wow, they ditch Extraction Specialist. Interesting. Okay, so again, I feel like I want to race here. I feel like you know, again, this is super vulnerable to interaction, but it doesn't look like the opponent has any interaction, or they probably would have killed the Ornithopter last turn. So now we can attack in. If the opponent has Fatal Push for Vault Scourge, we're in trouble, but it doesn't look like they do. So we can just Portable Hold the Esper Sentinel here. There's an argument to maybe Portable Holding the Clement to stop them specializing it, but we have a Machiko's in hand, and we don't want to give them another card when we play that, so yeah, I mean, opponent's in a tough spot now because if they don't have removal for the Vault Scourge, they're going to find it hard to race us, I think. And, you know, like I said, the lines I've gone for this game are definitely risky to removal, but from the cards we have, I feel like the main way we're going to win this game is just installing these creatures up and hoping that the opponent doesn't have exactly Fatal Push. Because, like I said, if they're relying on Holy Heats or something, they're going to find it very difficult to take out these creatures now. And Vault Scourge within Soul is just very difficult for any aggro deck to race. Not to mention we've got Machikos in hand as well, which counts all the Insouls, so it would be getting, you know, giving a buff of +6/+6 next turn. So if the opponent can't find removal here, I think we're probably in a pretty sick position. Okay, they specialize another Kitchen Imp, which is a bit annoying because now they have 2 flying blockers. So, how much damage have they got in play here? Right, is this lethal? 3, 6, 8, 10. Oh, no, my bad. I thought the tokens that they created had haste. So, yeah, they're just short of lethal, so that means they have to keep both Kitchen Imps back. So, attacking with the Crucius and the Clement puts us down to 6, but we can just Machiko's the Vault Scourge next turn. I mean, again, they could Crucius here and find a Fatal Push potentially, which would be very rough. But again, you know, we've just got to take the best line to win. We can't really play around Fatal Push at this point, so I'm going to play Machikos here, buff the Vault Scourge. Maybe that was a misplay because I was thinking I might save the Portable Hold for something else, but I think I'm going to be Portable Holding this 2/2 anyway. So so that was a misplay on my part. I should have played the Portable Hold first, and then we would have gained an extra life back off the Vault Scourge. Hopefully that won't end up mattering here, but we'll see. I mean, at this point, even if the opponent does draw a Fatal Push, they can only kill the Vault Scourge, in which case we just win with the Ornithopter. So they need either 2 more flyers or, you know, a removal spell plus a flyer, which is going to be pretty difficult to do, I think. So I'm pretty confident about our spot in this game now. I mean, again, the opponent could go push and then find another one off Crucius. So we'll see. I mean, again, we don't really know what the opponent's deck list is. They might not even be running Fatal Push. They could just be running red base removal. But I'd be kind of surprised if they weren't running Fatal Push, considering they're running Crucius as a treasure generator. You know, Crucius on turn 3 into Fatal Push is such a sick curve out. Okay, they just didn't have an answer. Sweet. So we got that. Nice. Okay, so this matchup, I mean, Portable Hold didn't seem great there. I think we do want Glass Casket as a way to take out stuff like Crucius or any other 3-drops they might be running. Outside of that, I'm not really sure I want to make any changes, to be honest. Right, we could consider Metallic Rebuke if we knew they were bringing Brotherhood's End, but again, you know, we don't really know what the opponent's running, so I think I'm just going to run it back like that. You know, not a huge fan of increasing the curve of the deck by just swapping Portable Hold for Casket, but we didn't really see many 1 and 2 drops from them. You know, I assume they're probably running Blazing Rootwaller maybe, but even if they're not, they've still got like Clement, but outside of that we didn't really see much, whereas Glass Casket can take out Crucius, and Crucius is definitely a card that will run away with the game if we don't deal with it, so but yeah, overall, I mean, I feel pretty confident in these sorts of matchups because it's very difficult for any aggro deck to beat Foundry Thopter making 4/4s straight away. I think particularly against red-based aggressive decks, if we can go Vault Scourge and they don't kill it straight away and we can install it like we did last game, that's just a way that we can just completely outrace them as well. So I feel pretty confident in most aggro matchups. You know, the ones that are a little bit scary can be stuff where they go wide really quickly, like Elves, for example, but a lot of the time we can just race in the air. You know, like we did last game, you can just install a Vault Scourge, you can install an Ornithopter, you can use Machikos and start attacking it in the air as well. Plus, you also have, you know, Portable Hull and Glass Casket post-sideboard against those sorts of decks. So, overall, aggro has felt pretty good with this deck from my experience. And to be honest, I think, you know, you've got tools to fight most of the matchups. The only matchup where I'm really scared of is Blue-White Control because of Divine Purge and, you know, just sweepers in general, but we do have much more counterplay to that because we got Metallic Rebuke, because we got Hope of Girapur, and because Rakdos midrange is everywhere right now. Blue-White Control is basically not played at all from my experience, so I feel like the deck is pretty well positioned right now. You know, outside of Control, I feel like the deck has decent tools to fight in most matchups. Okay, so this hand looks pretty sick. We've got, you know, potentially a turn 2 Ensouled Vault Scourge. Now again, you know, the opponent is playing black. I assume they've got Fatal Push, so I'm not 100% sure if that's the safest line. So again, since I could potentially want to play Machikos or Ensoul on turn 2, I'm going to run out both creatures here in case they kill the Vault Scourge. Then we can just either Ensoul or Machikos the Ornithopter to start applying pressure. Because otherwise, you know, if we draw a land, the only other play we've got here is just Hope of Girapur, which isn't great. So Esper Sentinel is a card I want to get into play as quickly as possible in most situations. So, but I don't know. I feel like I want to start using the Machikos now because, you know, they could very well have a kill spell for the Vault Scourge, but it's going to be flipping into a pretty big threat earlier. I mean, having said that, maybe it was better to just go Sentinel and Hope of Girapur, but then again, we're also very vulnerable to Brotherhood's End. So I think this is a situation where not knowing the opponent's deck is definitely, you know, we could make the wrong play because we don't know exactly what the opponent's running. You know, if I think they're running a high amount of spot removal, then it's probably better to go Sentinel, Hope of Girapur. If we see that they're running Brotherhood's End in the sideboard, then I think this is the better line, because if they do Brotherhood's End, at least we get the creature side of Machikos. Okay, interesting. So they have Lightning Axe and Fiery Temper, so I'm not sure. I mean, this is kind of awkward because we don't get Chapter 2 of Machikos anymore, but I'm not sure that Esper Sentinel plus Hope would have been that much better of a line, to be honest. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe it was better to just go Sentinel, because then we tax the opponent's ability to play the removal spells. So here, I think I'm pretty interested in using Ensoul. You know, even though it is kind of awkward that we don't get the Sentinel in play. You know, thinking about it, maybe last time I should have gone for the Sentinel instead of the Machikos. You know, Sentinel plus Hope. And then, you know, it's a lot more difficult for the opponent to play their removal. Okay, so they headline into Kitchen Imp. But I think we're in a good spot now. I think their deck is probably going to have no ways to stop Ensoul on Citadel here. Interesting spot here. I think I want to go for the Glass Casket, and then we can freely attack with the headliner, because the risk of, you know, going Esper Sentinel Hope is that if they have a way to kill the Portrait of Machiko, they can just race. You know, at the moment, even though we're ahead on board, we're definitely behind in terms of life total. So I just want to go Glass Casket there to ensure that the opponent can't just go removal spell on Portrait and start attacking back. You know, now they're in a spot where we're on a 5-turn clock and they're on a 2-turn clock, basically. Okay, they play Tiefling Outcast, which buffs the Kitchen Imp. Interesting. So I think I'm going to go for the Sentinel and the Hope now, because, you know, we don't really have another good target for the Ensoul yet. This buffs the Portrait up to a 6/6. So if they don't chump block with the Tiefling Outcasts here, we're dealing 11 damage, which is huge, right? So I feel like they're kind of incentivized to block here. And then we've still got this Ensoul to potentially equip the Hope of Girapur, potentially equip the Esper Sentinel, probably the Hope because it's evasive. And I feel like the only way the opponent's going to win this is by trying to race with that Kitchen Imp. So I feel like unless they have literally nothing here, they're probably forced to attack. Oh wow, they just didn't. Well, I mean, they have been missing land drops as well, which is obviously a big help for us. So interesting spot here. We can Ensoul the Hope, which I don't know. I feel like that makes us more vulnerable to interaction. I feel like they have to have something, right? They've got a grip full of non-lands for them to not play a land this turn. So I think I'm going to lead on the Ingenious Smith first, rather than risking going in Soul and them having removal. Wow, okay. Bricking is kind of rough. Okay, opponent just scoops it up anyway. Sick, we got there. Nice.